Sophie, and I'm waiting for Taylor to get finished dressing so we can go to the dokidoki, 6% dokidoki event in Japantown today. And I teased one of my wigs. So you can see it's pretty large, and I have a bunch of jewelry. This one moves. It's not awesome. And these, and a bunch of
Nice to meet you, Yuka. And what is your name?
Hi, my name is Bunny. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Bunny. What is your theme of your fashion? One word.
Fake.
Fake.
Come on.
モンド系の雑貨や日用品などがあふれている雑貨屋さんからスタートしました。
The 6% dokidoki originally wasn't a fashion store. We used to sell toys and random items that looked like they had no purpose.
で、
I just like the free way of thinking and the free atmosphere of Harjuku.
お店です。
I opened 6% dokidoki when I was 24 years old.
で、その頃ですね。
The items that I sold, and these items weren't for fashion, but they started incorporating these random bits and pieces into their fashion style.
はい。それが6% ドキドキが生み出します。
So this is the origin of the fairy K or decora K fashion, and 6% dokidoki pretty much gave birth to those styles in 1995. In those days, Harjuku used to have one whole street opened and closed out for pedestrians only, so people could walk around freely there. And a lot of young people started to gather there to show off their fashion styles. So around this time, the free way of thinking in Harjuku is slowly disappearing, and a lot of people started wearing more trendy, more mass-produced items. So the question is, where did this blocked-off road, which is literally translates to the pedestrian's heaven, where did this come from? Where did the free spirit of Harajuku come from? I'm going to explain right now. This is Harajuku back in the 1970s.
で、そもそも原宿はですね、米軍が、第二次世界大戦後、米軍が代々木に基地を作って、そこに、米軍相手に商売をする人たちが集まるところから、原宿の街が形成されます。
So Harajuku started after World War II when the American Army made their base in where it is Yoyogi right now. And around the base, a lot of stores started to gather around to sell items to the Americans that were stationed there. And at the same time, a lot of young people started to gather from all over Japan to purchase these fancy or fashionable, trendy items that were imported from America. As you can see from the video, this is when American culture was just directly coming into Japan, inspired and fond of American culture. Like in the video that you saw right now, hamburgers, fried chicken, that kind of stuff was very popular too. Young people started to gather from all over Japan to get a piece of America there. 1980s, and this is when a group called Takenokozoku, a performance group, started to gather around Harajuku. So they actually went to buy cloth and made their own outfits. The main motive of dressing like this was to stand out and to look completely different from anyone else. So this whole movement was kind of linked to the misfits or outcast culture of Japan, which is also known as the Yankee culture. Pedestrians heaven, and dancing was almost like a status symbol, and when you went to that street and performed your dance, in a sense, that was like the highest rank you could have in the society.
They didn't really owe anything to American style or fashion. which was a huge break with youth culture prior to that.
After the Takenoko-zuka came the rockers and the rockabillys, and like the London punks of today, these people that are dancing in the video, they are still dancing on the streets of Harajuku. Like old people that are just randomly dancing on the street. Disturbance problems, so they started to make rules about not playing music too loud. Tourists come together around, and more locals or more true Harajuku kids, they go to the Ura Harajuku, which is literally translates to the back streets of Harajuku. The reason why Ura Harajuku was born is because when people like me who were young wanted to open a store in Harajuku, they couldn't afford to pay rent for places in Takeshita-dori, for example, or the bigger roads, as you can see on the video right now. We just didn't have the money to pay rent for such areas. So after more rich people find out that a lot of young people, a lot of people in general, start to gather in these back streets, they start spending a lot of money and buy up all the land. And because of this, the rent for these back streets became really high, and a lot of young people who weren't opening stores for more marketing reasons, they had to start closing store because they couldn't afford the rent anymore. But a lot of people that we used to work with back in the days, they are no longer here.
その頃の90年代の印象とかってありますか、パトリック？
So Patrick, I heard that you came to 6% Dokidoki back in the 90s. Do you have any lasting impressions with us?
The store looked like a giant psychedelic mushroom forest, like HR Puff stuff. If any of you seen that show, and there weren't really any clothes. There weren't any original goods. It was mostly like just crazy, bad taste, like toys. Remember, there was a lot of Powerpuff Girls stuff, and just kind of stuff you would see like at a dollar store, like in the Mission or like in Chinatown.
仕入れてきました。
So back in the day, I was really obsessed with Mexico and Mexican style stuff, so I used to import a lot of things from Mexico and sold these items at my store.
人形をこう叩いて壊すんですよ。びっくりしました。
So I just had a really strong impression with the piñatas, and I just saw people whacking the shit out of these piñatas. I was like, what are they doing? And I got
可愛い飴をこう取り出すっていうのはすごくびっくりしてすごく影響を受けました。
So what I was surprised most and influenced most is like all these people gathered around to break and destroy and be violent with this really cute doll or paper mache item, and then more cute stuff comes flying out of the piece, and I was really impressed by this.
パトリックは多分来たんだと思います。
That's probably when you came there, Patrick. In a sense, these kids from Harjuku pretty much made the 6% Dokidoki style. I don't believe that we were the ones that created the style. We didn't start off like, oh, look at this and copy this. It was more like these kids came to our store and started incorporating the items that we sold, and then they created a whole style. And that's the way the 6% Dokidoki style was born.
In November 2008, and at that time, H&M was just about to open, just right around the corner from Takeshita-dori, just facing opposite Ura Harajuku. And Forever 21, I think hadn't opened yet, but that was on the horizon. So there was this sense of kind of these global, fast fashion companies moving in to Harajuku and trying to, capitalize on the buzz. Just
いっぱい物が売れるだろうっていうことでやってきたんですね。
So like I mentioned before, a lot of people who wanted to play the money game and get a profit started to invest in the land of Ura Harajuku, making the rent expensive and all that. And it's a similar idea when it comes to these opening of these fast fashion stores. It's the same concept of, oh, people are going to gather around. There's going to be a lot of people here. If we open a store here, we can make a big profit. For example, Forever 21, they don't just bring items from America and just sell them in Japan. They actually look at the Japanese market and see how the Japanese consumers react to their items. And depending on how they react, they try bringing the items that are popular in Japan, the items that sell successfully in Japan, and start selling it back in the US. And when I'm observing stuff like that, I really think that people who play the money game are really intelligent. And using items in the way that aren't originally supposed to be used. A good example is when girls buy ribbons that are intended to be worn in your hair. Some girls, find a creative, interesting way to use these ribbons, and that kind of attitude is what's the basis of the Harjuku fashion attitude. And for example, like, someone would spend $10,000 on a little figurine, and a lot of people who don't understand that person would wonder, why would anyone want to spend $10,000 on a little piece of toy? They understand that that little figurine is much worth more than $10,000. They'll be able to understand why this person's spending so much money on a little piece of junk like that, but for that person, it's their own form of happiness right there. People started to notice that money isn't everything, and money isn't the only form of happiness out there. And this is when a lot of people start to notice that what's most important when you're living your own life is to find your own form of happiness. So it's kind of the same today. War and terrorism has become a really normal thing in our lives, and the way that we revolt, and this may be unconscious, but the way we revolt is how we wear all these bright, happy colors.